Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chris and my pronouns are they, them. Today I am super excited. I am responding to a viewer's question with a reading. I wanted to include the comment in the video, but I can't find it anymore. It's probably user error. I wanted to, acknowledge who it was and thank them. It was an excellent question. I apologize. I can't find the actual comment anymore. But in any case, I had made a video where I had mentioned that change is a constant in life, and the viewer asked something to the effect of, "How do we cope with that?" And I love this question. Thank you for asking it, whoever you are, because you are certainly not the only one who would love the cards to answer that very question. The deck that I'm using is the Good Tarot by Colette Baron-Reid. I just love the art in this deck. I've chosen a 4 card reading. It is my go-to, and I have found it invaluable in my journey of self-awareness and healing from complex trauma. So let me introduce my 4 card reading. I should add it's not my creation. I learned it from my first tarot mentor, Tiffany Lazic. Um, so the first card of the reading represents what is happening physically. So in this reading, we'll be looking at what the cards have to tell us about how to cope with constant change physically. The second card is the realm of the emotional. So again, we'll be looking for input into how to process constant change emotionally. The third card represents what is happening in terms of our thought processes, our mental state, if you will. And the fourth and final card represents the spiritual. Spirituality can mean very different things to different people, so take it with a grain of salt. If my brand of spirituality doesn't necessarily mesh with yours, imagine the great conversations we could have in that case. Um, so I pulled a card for each of these areas, and we'll do a quick um, dive into them individually, and then we'll tie it all back together at the very end of the reading. So the card representing the physical is the Ace of Water. In other suits, water is cups, and it is very much tied to the emotions. The second card for the emotional realm is the High Priestess. The third for the mental is Fortune's Wheel. And finally, for the spiritual aspect of things, we have the Messenger of Fire. In other decks, this would have been the Knight of Wands. As happens sometimes, a particular card will fall out of the deck, and in this case, while I was finished drawing the first 4, a fifth fell out. And this one was Justice, and I believe it represents the overarching energy of the reading. So we have a bonus with the 5 cards to answer this question with. So let's start with the physical and see what these cards are telling us. So unconditional love, this card can represent overflowing abundance and the fertility of love. I think it's about finding pearls of joy in the midst of the chaos that you can cling to. We get so used to it, we get stuck clinging to chaos. So, one very practical suggestion that could come from this card would be to clear a spot in your place somewhere and put a few of your favorite objects there. So, things that remind you of good times and bring up warm memories for you, things that make you instantly smile, things that awe you with their beauty. Make a point of looking at it every day and maybe even picking up and holding some of the objects. and allow yourself to become aware of how your emotional state affects you physically. Maybe you're already very well aware of this for yourself. But when you're under stress, do you get headaches? Does your stomach churn? Does your neck and shoulders get tight? Do you clench your jaw? Do you bite your fingernails? How do you feel it physically? And when you're feeling joy, do your cheeks ache from smiling so much? Does your stomach hurt from laughing? Do you smile without realizing it? Do you breathe more deeply? Everyday life, compounded by real world events that shake our foundations, are going to leave us feeling awash with emotion. So let us anchor ourselves with beauty, not as a spiritual bypass, but something physical that reminds our nervous system of times that felt safe. So, those objects I suggested getting together are things that can help your brain bridge the gap between those instinctual memories and um, remembering when you're feeling overwhelmed a place of safety and being able to work your way back to that place of safety. And so now we're going to look at the high priestess in the mental realm, or sorry, emotional realm. And I just wanted to read the little white book, the LWB, um, that comes with the deck regarding this card. So, to quote, some things are not meant to be known intellectually, but are meant to be experienced through intuition. This card reminds me to trust that I have access to higher wisdom and knowing when I'm in tune and trust my vibes. This is the time when mysteries will be revealed and I can grow as a result. So I really think the message of this card for us today is to trust yourself. You are past second guessing your own emotions. So if you've kind of fallen back into second guessing yourself, this is your friendly reminder to just take that back. Thank you very much. You can reclaim your own mastery of working with your emotions. Um, if you look at the card, you can see there's depictions of the moon in its different phases. And this reminds us that many things are cyclical. Our emotions will ebb and flow, guided by our inner wisdom, the way the tides are guided by the moon. It is natural to navigate certain changes with ease and others not so much. So remember to extend extra kindness and compassion to yourself when you recognize that you're in a space of change and are not coping with ease. This card speaks of a significant shift in your emotional capacity to deal with change, which comes of having established a level of trust within yourself for yourself. You will come to a place of instinctively knowing that you can trust yourself to navigate any and every type of change, maybe not with complete ease, but based on the life experiences you have learned from, relying on the support system you have or are building for yourself. So learn to breathe with change. Breathing is also an ebb and a flow. This card is calling you to accept change as a constant. And therefore, rather than putting all of your trust in the things around you that might keep you safe from the change, put your trust in your own capabilities and resilience. And now we'll look at the mental capacity realm. And we did get Fortune's Wheel, and we probably can't talk about change in a reading without having the Wheel of Fortune, as it's usually called, pop out. This card, it reminds us to find our center and to allow the rush and the chaos to whirl around us mentally without having it drag us along with it all willy-nilly. This automatically makes me think of mindfulness. If you are familiar with Jon Kabat-Zinn, please have a peek at his offerings again. If you're unfamiliar, please do check them out. They have been invaluable to me in learning mindfulness and having it as a way of being as much as possible. And maybe with this card, you just need a reminder to continue to come back to a space of practicing mindfulness. Um, it sort of blows me away that this card came up in the mental realm. It's such a synchronicity. Um, Whether or not we find change exhilarating or terrifying is often attached to the story that we assign to the change. So take the time to pause, maybe even pause the video to settle into mindfulness and observe your thoughts around constant change, maybe even changes that are happening for you right now. What are the stories you are telling yourself about these changes? Ultimately, our preconceived ideas can leave us worrying about things that never actually do happen. But here again, we need to remember the self compassion and let those thoughts come and go as they will, but recognize that they are thoughts. This unburdens us from the unnecessary mental suffering that can accompany constant change. We can turn our thoughts and energy to finding concrete ways to reconnect with the here and now, which also happens to be the only time and space that we have any agency in. Maybe when you are mentally being tossed around by life's events and can't seem to find your way back to the present, to your wise self, try a very basic exercise where you name 5 things that you see, 5 things that you hear, and 5 things that you physically feel. You can do this silently or name them out loud if that works better for you. Then go and do 4 of each things, followed by 3, then 2, then 1, and then take a deep breath and kind of give yourself a bit of a shake. And we'll move on here to the spiritual. Now, in the spiritual, we have the messenger of fire. And this is the card of putting your passion, your will into practice. You are the apprentice. You've been the page and you've done all the book learning, and you are now applying it out in the world. All that knowledge, you are learning to put it into practice. You still have mentors and those who teach you, but you are working your way towards mastery with your passions and your will. This is a card of innovation and creative will. As you are coming into a place of trusting yourself and your intuition, like we've talked about already in this reading, then you will be in a place to create solutions that are perfectly suited to you when change occurs in the same space and time as you. Your mind will be on the solution if the change presents a problem. You will be asking yourself instinctively, how can this work out for my best? And what can I do about it today? Which brings us right to justice, the overarching energy of the reading. And let me quote the LWB again to kick this one off. The law of cause and effect is in play now as I see elements in my life balance out. What goes around comes around. Now I'm seeing evidence of this law in the conditions of my world. End quote. So the LWB also expands on the meaning of the card, describing it as karma. So we see in the card that her implements are the glowing sword and the unbalanced scales. The sword representing discerning truth from illusion. For example, asking yourself that question, is this the story I've made up about this situation? Is this a situation I have any agency in? Is it present, past, or future? If it's either the past or the future, how can I get back to the present where I can better assess my agency from an open minded, emotionally balanced perspective? And it said, what goes around comes around. And this sound may sound ominous. It may even be gaslighting if used incorrectly. But that's not what this is about. Acceptance is not agreeing with something. It is simply acknowledging that it is fact, but without the story attached to it. The scales that she's holding represent where we are placing responsibility for acting on the chaos we see around us, in our personal lives and in the world in general. Do I have privilege? That goes in one scale, tipping the balance toward the place of taking personal responsibility for some element of change that is bound to be happening around me. Do I have trauma? Which scale this goes in will depend on where I'm at in my journey of healing. And only I can decide how or if it is emotionally safe for me to use that experience of healing with it in a certain way. I guess this card calls us to remember that we are almost all of us just still learning to navigate all this change as even the change is changing. Its growth is exponential. I mean, I joke a little because I don't want this to be a heavy reading. The tarot can be serious, but it can also have a sense of humor sometimes. And so let's just take a step back and look at everything together as one. Just visually, there are some things to note. There are juxtapositions in the symbolisms themselves, suggesting further complexity to this question. And it's certainly not a simple question to answer. So, for example, we can see that in the physical and the mental realms. With both of those cards, there's a circular theme. In the Ace of Water, the seahorse is all but cuddling up to that pearl. And in Fortune's Wheel, if we look, there's a face of someone who looks stuck hopelessly in the middle of the chaos. These are opposites, yet they could suggest holding yourself from within and from without, and finding a place of support inside and outside. This is also an idea of catching a glimpse of a world within a world, because we could imagine that mental state depicted by that chaotic Fortune's Wheel card, tucked neatly inside that pearl that's being cuddled by the seahorse. And maybe we can look a little deeper into that Fortune's Wheel, and perhaps that person is not caught and being whirled around, but it is actually being kept safe by all the chaos that is around them. So it's like one within another within another. So the High Priestess and the Messenger of Fire. The High Priestess, she looks like an ice princess, and the Messenger of Fire looks like a fire princess, suggesting that we have a range of personas, as it were, or maybe it's better said as alternate responses to specific kinds of changes. Do I need to be warm and embrace this change? Or do I need to be burning it all down by tipping my head a little too close and just setting that on fire? Or should I distance myself from it and create a place of protection for myself? I want to be friends with both of them, the High Priestess and the Messenger of Fire. They both look like they would be pretty good friends. But I do have to say, I wouldn't ever want to cross either one of them. They both have a real don't mess with me vibe. It is notable that three of the five cards are major arcana cards. This means they are speaking of major shifts and changes, while the remaining two are minor arcana, which speak more of details. So this would suggest to me that there are many of us actually struggling with this same issue in today's world, and that we can support each other through it in part by learning to fully trust our own selves. And in knowing how to trust ourselves, we can learn who else is trustworthy. And it is also something to note that Fortune's Wheel and Justice, those cards are beside each other in terms of the order of the major arcana, them being numbers 10 and 11 respectively. They speak of a transition from the mental whirlwind of Fortune's Wheel to the clarity and authority of the Justice card. There is definitely a call for a change in perspective of where we are situated in all this happening around us. There is a call to look at your own situation with complete honesty and assess what degree of urgency might be in this for you. So are you feeling drowned by all of the chaos? What are some of the tools that you've heard throughout this video that can help you, that you can implement? What are some other tools that you've learned other times in order to strategize, and how can you relate those to this topic and this ability to live in a world of constant change as that is growing for you? Hopefully, this is a step in the right direction as far as that goes for you as well. Thanks again for the question, and thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And thank you all for watching. Goodbye.